You wake up in the morning. You check your phone. 8 hours have passed since you closed your eyes. Time moved forward while you were unconscious. At least that is what it feels like. But what if I told you that feeling, that sensation of time flowing like a river carrying you from past to future, might be the most sophisticated illusion your brain has ever created? What if the thing you trust most about reality, the forward march of seconds and minutes and years, is nothing more than a story your neurons tell you to keep you from going insane? This isn't philosophy. This is physics. And the deeper we look into the actual structure of reality, the more obvious it becomes that time, as you experience it, doesn't exist. Not in the way you think, not even close. So if time isn't real, what the hell are you actually experiencing right now? Let's find out. For the last century, physicists have been trying to build a complete picture of how the universe works. They have two incredible theories. Both are masterpieces. Both have been tested thousands of times. Both work perfectly in their own domains, and both say completely different things about time. This is the problem. This is where everything starts to crack. On one side, you have Einstein's general relativity. This is the theory that explains gravity, black holes, and the bending of space. In relativity, time is real. It is a dimension just like length, width, and height. You can stretch it, you can compress it, you can even stop it if you get close enough to a black hole. Time in relativity is flexible, dynamic, woven into the fabric of the universe. It exists, it is physical, it can be measured and manipulated. On the other side, you have quantum mechanics. This is the theory that explains atoms, particles, and the fundamental forces that hold matter together. Quantum mechanics is insanely accurate. It built your phone. It powers nuclear reactors. It predicts the behavior of electrons with terrifying precision. But here is the problem. When you write down the fundamental equations of quantum mechanics, the ones that describe how particles behave at the deepest level, time often disappears. It becomes irrelevant. It drops out of the math entirely. This is not a small disagreement. This is two world-class scientists standing in the same room, looking at the same clock, and one of them saying the clock is broken, while the other insists it is the most important object in the universe. Physicists call this the problem of time. And it is not just an academic headache. It is a signpost pointing to something deeply wrong with our understanding of reality. If our two best theories cannot agree on whether time is real, then at least one of them is lying to us. Maybe both of them are. Let's start with the thing you think you know. You think time ticks at the same rate everywhere. 1 second on Earth is 1 second on Mars, is 1 second at the edge of the galaxy. That seems obvious, that seems safe. It is completely wrong. Einstein destroyed that idea over 100 years ago. Time is not universal. It does not flow at the same speed for everyone. It bends, stretches, and slows down depending on where you are and how fast you are moving. Here is how it works. Gravity slows time. The stronger the gravitational field, the slower time moves. If you stand at sea level, time ticks slightly slower for you than it does for someone standing on top of a mountain. The difference is tiny, but it is real. Atomic clocks can measure it. Your phone's GPS satellites have to account for it. If they didn't, your navigation would drift by miles every single day. The satellites are farther from Earth's gravity well, so time moves faster for them than it does for you. Engineers have to program the satellites to slow their clocks down to match yours. Otherwise, the system breaks. This gets more extreme. Astronauts on the International Space Station age slightly slower than people on the ground, not by much. Over the course of a year in space, an astronaut might age a few milliseconds less than their twin on Earth. It is measurable. It is real. Now take it further. If you stood next to a black hole, close to the event horizon where gravity is crushing space-time into a singularity, time for you would nearly stop. You could spend what feels like an hour near the black hole, but when you flew back to Earth, centuries could have passed. Everyone you knew would be dead. Civilizations could have risen and fallen. For you, an hour. For them, lifetimes. Speed does the same thing. The faster you move, the slower time ticks for you, relative to someone standing still. This is not a trick. It is not a perception problem. It is the actual rate at which physical processes unfold. If you got on a spaceship and accelerated to 99% the speed of light, you could travel to a distant star and come back in what feels like a few years. But when you return to Earth, everyone you left behind would be long gone. Decades, maybe centuries, would have passed. You didn't teleport. You didn't skip time. Time just moved slower for you because you were moving fast. This leads to a conclusion that should terrify you. There is no master clock in the universe. There is no cosmic metronome ticking away in the background, keeping everything synchronized. Every object, every observer, every atom has its own timeline. Time is local. It is personal. It is relative. The idea that right now, at this exact moment, the entire universe is experiencing the same present is pure fiction. It doesn't work that way. Reality doesn't care about your feelings. Now we get to the part that breaks people. The block universe. This is not a fringe idea. This is a direct consequence of Einstein's relativity, and it is one of the most important concepts you need to understand if you want to know what is actually going on. The block universe says this: the past, present, and future all exist at the same time. Not metaphorically, physically. The future is not something that hasn't happened yet. It is already there, sitting in the structure of spacetime, waiting for your consciousness to experience it. Imagine the universe as a loaf of bread. Each slice of the loaf is a moment in time. One slice is the dinosaurs. Another slice is your birth. Another slice is your death. Another slice is the heat death of the sun. All of these slices exist simultaneously. They are all part of the same object, the same four-dimensional structure. You, right now, are experiencing one slice. But the other slices are just as real. The dinosaurs are still there in their slice. Your future self is already there in another slice. The slices don't go away just because your awareness has moved past them. This is what relativity implies. Time is not a river. It is a landscape. You are not moving through time. You are moving across a fixed structure, experiencing different cross-sections of a reality that already exists in its entirety. This destroys the common sense idea of time. It destroys the idea that the past is gone and the future is open. If the block universe is real, then everything that will ever happen to you has already happened. It is already carved into the structure of spacetime. You just haven't experienced it yet. Let me make this even worse. If the block universe is true, then the sensation you have right now, the feeling that this moment is special, that now is somehow different from 5 minutes ago or 5 minutes from now, is an illusion. There is no now, not in any universal sense. Now is just the slice of spacetime your brain happens to be processing at this instant. But that slice is not more real than any other slice. The moment you call the past is just as real as the moment you call the present. They are both just locations in the four-dimensional block. The flow of time, the thing that feels so visceral and undeniable, might be nothing more than the way consciousness samples a static reality. Think about a movie. When you watch a movie, it feels like it is moving. It feels like the characters are living and making choices in real time. But the entire movie already exists. Every frame is already there on the film reel or in the digital file. Your experience of the movie flowing forward is just you watching frame after frame in sequence. The frames themselves are not moving. You are. The block universe says the same thing about your life. Your entire life, birth to death, already exists as a complete structure. You are just experiencing it frame by frame, slice by slice, moment by moment. The flow is in your head, not in the universe. This brings us to a question that most people never think about. What makes right now feel like right now? Why does this moment feel special? Why does it feel like the present is the only thing that is real, and everything else is either memory or anticipation? Physics has a very unsettling answer. There is no universal, present moment. The idea of now, the idea that the entire universe is synchronized in a single shared instant, is false. It doesn't exist. Here is why. According to relativity, events that are happening now for you are not happening now for someone else if that person is moving relative to you. Let me say that again. If you are standing still and I am flying past you in a spaceship at high speed, the events that I consider to be happening right now are different from the events you consider to be happening right now. Our present moments do not line up. If I am moving fast enough, something that is in your future might be in my present. Something that is in your past might be in my future. Simultaneity, the idea that two things can happen at the same time, is not absolute. It is relative. It depends on your motion. This is not a thought experiment. This is how the universe actually works. There is no objective now that everyone agrees on. There is no master timeline where everyone is experiencing the same moment. Your now is yours. My now is mine. And if we are moving at different speeds or sitting in different gravitational fields, our nows will not match. The present moment, the thing you think is the realest thing in existence, is just a label you stick on a particular slice of space-time based on your motion and position. Change your speed, and you change what counts as now. This is deeply destabilizing. It means that the thing you think is most real, this exact moment, is actually the least objective thing in physics. The present is a perspective. It is not a fact. And if the present is not real in any universal sense, then what are you actually experiencing when you feel like you are living in the now? You are experiencing your own personal slice of space-time, labeled as the present by your brain. But that label has no cosmic significance. The universe doesn't care about your now. It doesn't recognize it. From the perspective of the universe, all moments are equally real and equally present. Time is a place, not a process. Okay, so if time doesn't flow and the present isn't special, why does it feel like time is moving? Why does it feel like there is a clear difference between past and future? Why does it feel like you can remember yesterday but not tomorrow? This is where thermodynamics comes in. This is where we talk about entropy, and this is where the illusion starts to take shape. Entropy is a measure of disorder. The second law of thermodynamics says that in a closed system, entropy always increases. Things fall apart. Order decays into chaos. Eggs break, they don't unbreak. Ice melts, it doesn't unmelt. Smoke spreads, it doesn't gather itself back into a cigarette. This one-way process, this relentless march from order to disorder, creates what physicists call the arrow of time. It gives time a direction. It makes the future look different from the past. But here is the important part. The fundamental laws of physics don't have an arrow. If you take the equations that describe how particles move, how forces work, how energy flows, almost all of them work just as well going forward as they do going backward. You can run the math in reverse and it still makes sense. A particle moving left can just as easily be described as a particle moving right if you flip the direction of time. Physics at the fundamental level is time symmetric. It doesn't care which way the clock is running. Entropy is the exception. Entropy is what breaks the symmetry. Entropy is what makes the universe look different going forward than it does going backward. Without entropy, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a video playing normally and a video playing in reverse. A ball bouncing on the ground would look the same forward and backward. But because of entropy, because energy spreads out and systems become more disordered over time, the direction of increasing entropy defines what we call the future. The direction of decreasing entropy defines what we call the past. So the arrow of time, the thing that makes it feel like time is flowing from past to future, is not a property of time itself. It is a property of entropy. It is a statistical pattern that emerges from the behavior of huge numbers of particles. Time doesn't flow. Entropy increases. And our brains interpret that increase as the passage of time. This means that the sensation of time moving forward is actually just your brain detecting the universal drift toward disorder and labeling it as the future. The flow of time is the flow of entropy. And entropy is not a fundamental force. It is a statistical tendency. It is a macro-level pattern, not a micro-level law. If you want to understand why this matters, think about it this way. If you could somehow reverse the motion of every particle in the universe, if you could make everything run backward, the laws of physics would still work. Particles would still obey the same rules. Forces would still behave the same way. But entropy would decrease instead of increase. And if entropy decreased, time would appear to run backward. The arrow would flip. This tells you that the arrow of time is not built into the structure of reality. It is a consequence of initial conditions. It is a result of the fact that the universe started in a low entropy state and has been spreading out ever since. The flow of time is a cosmic accident, not a cosmic law. Now let's talk about your brain, because here is the thing. Your brain does not detect time. It never has. It cannot. There is no time receptor in your skull. There is no sensory organ that picks up the passage of seconds the way your eyes pick up light, or your ears pick up sound. Time is not something you perceive directly. It is something your brain constructs after the fact. Think about how you experience the past. You don't actually experience the past. You experience memory. Memory is a reconstruction. Your brain takes fragments of stored information, stitches them together, and presents them to your consciousness as a coherent narrative. But that narrative is not the past. It is a story about the past. And like all stories, it is edited. Details are left out. Events are rearranged. Emotions are amplified or suppressed. The past you remember is not the past that happened. It is the past your brain thinks happened, filtered through bias, emotion, and the limitations of neural storage. Now think about the future. You don't experience the future either. You experience prediction. Your brain is constantly running simulations, modeling what might happen next, based on patterns it has learned. When you think about tomorrow, you are not accessing tomorrow. You are constructing a plausible scenario based on past data. Sometimes your predictions are accurate. Most of the time they are not. But either way, the future you imagine is not the future that will happen. It is a guess. It is a forecast. It is your brain's best attempt to prepare you for what might come next. And the present. The present is the only thing you think you experience directly. But even that is not true. Your brain does not process sensory information in real time. There is a delay. Light hits your retina, gets converted into electrical signals, travels through your optic nerve, gets processed in multiple stages of your visual cortex, and eventually gets integrated into your conscious experience. That takes time, somewhere between 80 and 200 milliseconds, depending on the complexity of the stimulus. This means that everything you see is slightly in the past. You are never looking at the present. You are always looking at a delayed recording. Your brain tries to hide this delay. It uses prediction to fill in the gaps. It creates the illusion of continuity by buffering sensory input and stitching moments together into a seamless stream. But that stream is a fabrication. The present moment you think you are experiencing is actually a construct built from slightly outdated sensory data, predictions about what should be happening now, and memories of what just happened a fraction of a second ago. Your brain takes all of that information, blends it together, and serves it to your consciousness as if it is happening right now. But it isn't. You are always living in the past, just a tiny, imperceptible bit of the past, but the past nonetheless. This is why psychology and neuroscience say that your experience of time is not a perception, it is a construction. Your brain builds a timeline. It organizes events into a sequence. It labels some events as past, some as present, some as future. But that timeline does not exist outside your head. It is a cognitive tool. It is a way of making sense of a chaotic influx of sensory data and neural activity. Time, as you experience it, is a story your brain tells you to keep reality manageable. And here is the kicker. Your brain can change the story. It can stretch time. It can compress time. It can reorder events. It does this all the time, and you don't even notice. This brings us to one of the strangest features of human time perception: the fact that the present is not actually instant. The present is not a razor-thin slice of now. It is a window. Psychologists call it the specious present. It lasts somewhere between 2 and 3 seconds. This is the span of time your brain treats as now. Everything happening within that window feels simultaneous, even though it is not. When you listen to music, you don't hear individual notes as isolated events. You hear phrases. You hear melodies. Your brain groups the notes together into a continuous experience, even though each note is technically a separate event happening at a different moment in time. The same thing happens with speech. When someone talks to you, you don't hear one phoneme at a time. You hear words. You hear sentences. Your brain buffers the sounds and presents them to you as coherent chunks of meaning. The present moment you experience is not a point. It is a duration. It is a small window of time during which your brain integrates multiple events into a single unified experience. But even that window is not stable. The length of your present can change depending on what you are doing and how your brain is functioning. This is why time feels different in different situations. When you are bored, time drags. When you are having fun, time flies. When you are terrified, time slows down. These are not metaphors. These are real changes in how your brain processes temporal information. Fear is the clearest example. When you are in a car accident or falling off a ladder, time seems to stretch. People report that everything moved in slow motion. They could see details they normally wouldn't notice. They had time to think long, complex thoughts in what should have been a fraction of a second. For a long time, scientists thought this meant your brain was actually speeding up its processing during moments of extreme stress, recording more information per second, like a camera switching to a higher frame rate. But experiments have shown that is not what happens. What actually happens is this. During moments of intense fear, your brain activates the amygdala, the fear center. The amygdala takes over and starts recording memories with much higher density. You are not processing more information in real time. You are encoding more details into memory. When you recall the event later, your brain sees all those extra details and assumes the event must have lasted a long time, because normally you wouldn't have that many memories unless a lot of time had passed. Your brain is fooled by its own memory density. The event didn't slow down. Your memory made it feel like it did after the fact. This is profoundly important. It means your sense of how long something lasted is not based on how long it actually lasted. It is based on how much you remember about it. This is why childhood feels like it lasts forever, and adulthood feels like it speeds up. When you are a child, everything is new. Your brain is encoding tons of memories every single day. When you look back on your childhood, you see a massive archive of experiences, so it feels like a long time. As an adult, most of your days are routine. You do the same things over and over. Your brain doesn't bother encoding repetitive information because it is not useful. So when you look back on the last year, you don't have many distinct memories. It feels like the year flew by because your memory archive is thin. Time perception is a function of memory density. Novel experiences stretch time. Routine compresses it. This is why a vacation feels long while you are on it, but short when you remember it later. While you are there, each day is packed with new sights and activities. Time feels slow because your brain is working hard to process everything. But when you get home and think back on the trip, the whole week blends together into a vague, pleasant blur. The memory archive is not as rich as the real-time experience, so the week feels shorter in retrospect than it did while you were living it. Psychological time and clock time are completely different things, and your brain is constantly manipulating one to fit the other. There is another layer to this that most people never consider. Your brain doesn't just construct time, moment by moment. It also edits the past retroactively. Every time you recall a memory, you are not pulling up a video file stored somewhere in your neurons. You are reconstructing the memory from scattered pieces of information. And during that reconstruction, new information can slip in. Details can change. Emotions can shift. Your current state of mind colors how you remember past events. This is why eyewitness testimony is so unreliable. This is why siblings can have wildly different memories of the same childhood event. This is why your memory of an argument changes depending on whether you are still angry or you have forgiven the person. Your past is not fixed. It is constantly being rewritten by your present. Every time you remember something, you are creating a new version of that memory, influenced by everything that has happened since. The timeline you think you are living is not a straight line from past to present. It is a tangled mess of reconstructions, predictions, and present moment sensations, all woven together by a brain that is desperately trying to create coherence out of chaos. You are not experiencing time. You are experiencing your brain's best guess about what time should feel like based on incomplete and constantly changing information. Let's take this even further. Think about dreams. When you dream, time becomes completely untethered from reality. You can experience what feels like hours or days in a dream that only lasted a few minutes of real time. You can jump between locations with no sense of travel time. You can meet people who have been dead for years, and it feels perfectly normal. In dreams, the rules of time break down because your brain is no longer anchored to external sensory input. It is running wild, creating narratives without the constraints of entropy or causality. And yet, while you are in the dream, the experience feels just as real as waking life. The flow of time in the dream feels natural, even though it is completely disconnected from clock time. This tells you something important. The feeling of time flowing does not require actual time to be flowing. Your brain can generate that feeling entirely on its own. The sense of duration, the sense of sequence, the sense of now, all of these can be manufactured internally without any connection to external reality. When you wake up from a dream, you realize the time in the dream was fake. But what if waking life is the same? What if the time you experience while awake is just another construction, slightly more constrained by sensory input, but fundamentally the same kind of illusion? Now we come to the part that makes physicists uncomfortable: quantum mechanics. At the quantum level, time becomes even stranger. In some formulations of quantum theory, time disappears entirely. One of the most important equations in quantum mechanics is the Wheeler-DeWitt equation. It describes the quantum state of the entire universe. And it has a very disturbing property. It does not contain a time variable. Time is not in the equation. The equation describes a static state. Nothing evolves. Nothing changes. There is no before or after. There is just the quantum state of the universe, frozen, timeless, unchanging. This is not a mistake. This is what happens when you try to combine quantum mechanics with general relativity. When you apply quantum rules to the entire universe, time has to go. And this creates a massive paradox. How can the universe be timeless if we clearly experience change? How can the Wheeler-DeWitt equation describe a frozen, static reality when everything around us is obviously moving and evolving? Physicists call this the problem of time in quantum gravity, and no one has solved it. One possible answer is that time is not fundamental. Time is emergent. Just like temperature emerges from the motion of particles, time might emerge from something deeper. At the most basic level, there might be no time at all. Reality might be a collection of relationships between quantum states. Change might not be something that happens in time. Change might be what creates the illusion of time. This is a radical idea, but it is taken seriously by physicists like Carlo Rovelli and Julian Barber. They argue that time is not a dimension. It is not a background stage on which events unfold. Time is a way of describing correlations between different parts of the universe. When one thing changes, another thing changes in response. We call that sequence of changes time. But the changes are what is real. Time is just the label we stick on the pattern. Barber takes this even further. He argues that the universe is not a history. It is a collection of moments, each one existing independently, none of them connected by any kind of flow. He calls these moments nows. Each now is a complete configuration of the universe. Each now exists on its own. There is no past or future. There is just an infinite space of possible configurations, and consciousness experiences these configurations one at a time, creating the illusion of movement, the illusion of time. If Barber is right, then time is not something you move through. Time is something your consciousness constructs as it samples different configurations of reality. You are not traveling forward. You are hopping from one frozen snapshot to another, and your brain stitches those snapshots together into a story called your life. The flow of time is the flow of your awareness across a static landscape of moments. This is deeply strange. It makes time feel less like a river and more like a slideshow. But it solves the problem. If time is not fundamental, then there is no contradiction between relativity and quantum mechanics. They are both describing the same underlying reality from different perspectives. Relativity describes how the snapshots are organized. Quantum mechanics describes the snapshots themselves. Neither one requires time to be real. So let's take this to its logical conclusion. If time is not fundamental, if it is just a pattern that emerges from something deeper, then maybe what we call time is really just change. Maybe the only thing that actually exists is transformation. Clocks don't measure time. They measure change. An atomic clock counts the oscillations of a cesium atom. A mechanical clock counts the rotations of gears. Your heartbeat counts the contractions of a muscle. All of these are changes in physical systems. We use these changes as a reference, and we call that reference time. But the reference is not the thing itself. Time is not the ticking. Time is what we infer from the ticking. Think about it. If nothing in the universe ever changed, if every atom stayed perfectly still, if no particle ever moved, if no field ever fluctuated, would time still exist? What would time even mean in a completely frozen universe? There would be no way to measure it. There would be no events to sequence. There would be no before or after, because nothing would ever be different. Time without change is meaningless. Change without time is perfectly coherent. You can have change without calling it time, but you cannot have time without change. This suggests that change is the fundamental thing, and time is just a convenient fiction we use to organize change into a narrative structure. This leads to a very uncomfortable question. Does time exist without consciousness? If no mind ever observed the universe, if there were no brains to construct timelines, no memories to organize, events, no predictions to model the future, would time still flow? Or would there just be change, happening with no one to label it as past, present, or future? Some physicists argue that time is an emergent property of consciousness. Without observation, without a system that records and compares states, the concept of time becomes meaningless. Time is not out there in the world. Time is in here, in your head, in the way your brain processes information. This is not solipsism. This is not saying the universe doesn't exist without you. The universe is still there. Change is still happening. Particles are still moving. Fields are still fluctuating. But the organization of those changes into a timeline, into a past and a future and a present that might require a conscious observer. Time might be the way consciousness experiences change. And without consciousness, there is just change with no temporal structure. If this is true, it flips our understanding of reality on its head. We usually think time is the container and events happen inside the container. But maybe events are the container and time is the story consciousness tells about those events. Time is not the stage. Time is the play. And if the play is in your head, then time is subjective, personal, and utterly dependent on the existence of minds to experience it. Let me give you a concrete example of how strange this gets. Imagine you are sitting in a quiet room. Nothing is moving. No sound. No light changes. Just stillness. In that moment, how do you know time is passing? You might say you can feel it. You can sense duration. But what you are actually sensing is internal change. Your thoughts are moving. Your neurons are firing. Your heart is beating. Blood is flowing. These internal processes are changing, and you interpret that change as the passage of time. But if you could freeze those internal processes too, if your neurons stopped firing and your thoughts went completely still, would you still experience time? You wouldn't. Time would cease to exist for you, even if the universe around you continued to evolve. This is what happens under general anesthesia. Your brain activity drops to a minimal level. Internal change nearly stops. And when you wake up, hours have passed but you experience nothing. No time, no awareness, just a gap. The time didn't happen for you because the internal change that creates the sensation of time was not there. This suggests something profound. Time is not something you move through. Time is something you generate internally by changing. Stop changing, and time stops for you. The universe might keep ticking away, but your personal timeline halts. This is why people in comas can wake up years later with no sense that any time has passed. Their brains were not generating change. Their internal clocks were stopped. The universe aged around them, but they did not age with it subjectively. They were frozen in time, not because time stopped, but because the machinery that creates the experience of time shut down. Now we get to the really dangerous part: free will. If the block universe is real, if the future already exists, if your entire life, from birth to death, is already carved into the structure of space-time, then what does that mean for your choices? Are you actually making decisions, or are you just experiencing predetermined events that were always going to happen? Are you an author, or are you a character reading a script? This is where the block universe becomes existentially threatening. If the future already exists, then everything you will ever do is already done. Every choice you think you are about to make has already been made. You feel like you are deciding whether to keep reading this or stop and do something else. But if the block universe is real, that decision is already locked in. It is already part of the structure. You are not choosing. You are just becoming aware of a choice that was always there, waiting for your consciousness to experience it. Some physicists argue that this doesn't destroy free will, because you still experience the decision-making process. You still deliberate, weigh options, and arrive at a conclusion. The fact that the conclusion was always going to happen doesn't change the subjective experience of making the choice. But that feels like a dodge. It feels like saying the roller coaster has free will because it experiences the turns, even though the track was already built. The track is the block universe. You are the cart. You are not steering. You are just riding. Others argue that quantum mechanics saves free will. Quantum mechanics introduces randomness, genuine unpredictability at the level of particles. If the future is not deterministic, if there are multiple possible outcomes for every quantum event, then the block universe is not fixed. It is probabilistic. The future is not a single predetermined path. It is a branching tree of possibilities. And consciousness might be what collapses those possibilities into a single experienced reality. You are not choosing from a menu of options. You are collapsing the wave function of your own life, selecting one branch of the tree and making it real. But even that doesn't quite work, because if the collapse is random, then you are not in control. You are just rolling dice. And if the collapse is influenced by your brain state, then your brain state was determined by prior causes, which were determined by prior causes, and you end up back in determinism. Free will is very hard to rescue once you start taking physics seriously. The block universe doesn't leave much room for it, and that is deeply unsettling. because the sensation of making choices is one of the most fundamental aspects of being human. If that sensation is an illusion, if you are just a passive observer experiencing a predetermined sequence of events, then what does it mean to be you? What does it mean to live a life? The answer might be that it doesn't matter. Even if free will is an illusion, the illusion is so convincing and so useful that you might as well act as if it is real. You still have to make decisions. You still have to live with the consequences. Whether those decisions were predetermined or genuinely free is irrelevant to the practical business of being alive. But knowing that your choices might be predetermined changes how you think about responsibility, regret, and the future. It makes the future feel less like a blank page and more like a book that is already written. You are just turning the pages. Think about what this means for regret. You lie awake at night, replaying conversations you wish had gone differently. You think about the job you didn't take, the relationship you ruined, the words you can never unsay. Regret is built on the assumption that things could have been different, that you could have chosen better, that another version of reality was possible where you made the right call. But in the block universe, there is no other version. There is only this one, the version where you made exactly the choice you made. The mistake you regret is not something you could have avoided. It was always going to happen. It is part of the permanent structure of your timeline. Does knowing this make regret irrational? Maybe. But try telling that to your brain. Your brain doesn't care about block universes and determinism. It cares about patterns. It cares about learning from mistakes so you don't make them again. Regret is a teaching tool. It is emotional pain designed to modify future behavior. And it works, even in a predetermined universe, because the modification of your future behavior was also predetermined. You were always going to feel regret. You were always going to learn from it. You were always going to change. The whole sequence was written into the structure from the beginning. This creates a strange loop. You regret a choice. The regret changes you. The changed version of you makes different choices, but all of that, the regret, the change, the new choices, all of it was predetermined. You are not escaping the script. You are performing it. Every moment of growth, every lesson learned, every time you become a better person, it was scheduled. The universe knew you would feel guilty. It knew you would try to improve. It knew you would succeed or fail. And it built all of that into your timeline before you were born. So what is the point of trying? If the outcome is already determined, why put in effort? Why struggle to be better? If better was always going to happen or never going to happen, regardless of what you do. This is the paralysis that comes from thinking too hard about determinism. It strips away motivation. It makes action feel meaningless. And this is exactly why your brain hides the truth from you. Your brain gives you the feeling of agency, the sensation that your effort matters, because without that feeling you would give up. And giving up, in evolutionary terms, is death. The organisms that survived were the ones who kept trying even when success was uncertain. The ones who felt like their actions mattered even if, at a cosmic level, they didn't. Your brain is the descendant of survivors. It is built to make you care, to make you try, to make you believe that the future is in your hands. And that belief is so deeply wired into your neural architecture that no amount of intellectual understanding can fully override it. You can know that free will might be an illusion. You can understand the block universe. And you will still feel like your choices matter, because that feeling is not optional. It is mandatory. It is how your brain keeps you alive. Let's go even deeper. Let's talk about emergence. The idea that time is emergent is one of the most important concepts in modern physics. Emergence means that a property or phenomenon arises from the interactions of simpler components, even though that property is not present in the components themselves. Temperature is emergent. A single molecule doesn't have a temperature. Temperature is the average kinetic energy of billions of molecules bouncing around. Wetness is emergent. A single water molecule is not wet. Wetness is what happens when trillions of water molecules interact with your skin. Consciousness might be emergent. A single neuron is not conscious. Consciousness arises from the pattern of activity across billions of neurons. Time might work the same way. At the most fundamental level, at the level of quantum fields and particles, there might be no time, just states, just relationships, just change. But when you zoom out, when you look at large collections of particles behaving collectively, patterns emerge, entropy increases, cause and effect become visible, and those patterns look like time. Time is not fundamental. It is a macro-scale illusion that emerges from microscopic interactions that have no temporal structure. Think about what this means for the nature of reality. If time is emergent, then the most basic level of existence, the quantum level, is utterly alien to your everyday experience. Down there, at the smallest scales, there is no before or after. There is no cause preceding effect. There is just a web of quantum states, entangled and correlated, with no temporal ordering whatsoever. Events don't happen in sequence. They just are. The entire history of the universe, from the Big Bang to the heat death, exists as a single timeless mathematical structure at the quantum level. No flow, no progression, just relationships. But when you zoom out, when you look at trillions upon trillions of particles interacting, something magical happens. Patterns appear. The second law of thermodynamics kicks in. Entropy increases. And suddenly there is a direction. Suddenly there is an arrow pointing from past to future. This arrow is not fundamental. It is statistical. It emerges from the overwhelming probability that disorder increases rather than decreases. And once you have an arrow, you have time. Or at least, you have something that looks enough like time that conscious beings can build narratives around it. This is why time only flows in one direction. Not because the laws of physics demand it, but because entropy demands it. If you could somehow reverse entropy, if you could make the universe move toward order instead of disorder, time would appear to run backward. The arrow would flip, and your brain, if it could somehow function in a decreasing entropy environment, would experience the past as the future, and the future as the past. Your memories would feel like predictions, and your predictions would feel like memories. The sensation of time flowing forward is not hard-coded into reality. It is a byproduct of entropy doing what entropy does, spreading out, smoothing over, dissolving structure into chaos. And here is the really disturbing part. If time is emergent, then it can break down. Just like temperature breaks down when you get to individual molecules, time breaks down when you zoom in far enough. At the quantum level, asking when something happened is like asking what the temperature of a single atom is. The question doesn't make sense. The concept doesn't apply. Time is a large-scale approximation that only works when you are dealing with big, complicated systems with many degrees of freedom. It is a useful fiction that helps macroscopic brains navigate macroscopic reality. But it is not the deep truth. The deep truth is timeless. This is cutting-edge territory. Physicists like Sean Carroll argue that time emerges from the growth of entropy in a low-entropy universe. Others like Carlo Rovelli argue that time emerges from the thermodynamic behavior of systems with many degrees of freedom. The details are still being worked out. But the core idea is the same. Time is not written into the bedrock of reality. It is a large-scale approximation, a useful description that works when you have trillions of particles, but breaks down when you look too closely at the individual pieces. If time is emergent, then asking what happened before the Big Bang is like asking what is north of the North Pole. The question doesn't make sense because time itself might have emerged with the Big Bang. Before the Big Bang, there was no before. There was just a quantum state with no temporal structure. Time began when that state started evolving, when entropy started increasing, when patterns started forming that could be organized into a sequence. Time is a feature of our universe, not a feature of reality itself. So why do humans need time to feel real? Why does your brain go to such great lengths to construct this elaborate illusion of past, present, and future? Because without it, you couldn't function. Time is essential for survival. Your brain uses time to organize cause and effect. If you touch fire and get burned, your brain needs to link those two events in a sequence. Cause, fire, effect, pain. That sequence is a timeline. Without timelines, you couldn't learn, you couldn't predict, you couldn't plan. You would be trapped in an eternal present with no sense of continuity, no memory, no anticipation, no identity. Identity depends on time. You are not a static object. You are a process. You are a pattern of information that persists over time. When you say I, you are referring to a continuous thread of experience that links your past self to your present self to your future self. That thread is a timeline. Without it, there is no you. There is just a collection of disconnected moments with no coherent narrative holding them together. This is what happens in certain types of brain damage. Patients with severe amnesia lose the ability to form new memories. They are trapped in a perpetual now. Every moment is fresh, disconnected from the last. They have no past. They have no future. They have no continuous self. They are lost in time because time, for them, has stopped being a story and become a series of isolated snapshots. There is a famous case of a patient known as HM. He had brain surgery to treat severe epilepsy. The surgery removed parts of his hippocampus, the region responsible for forming new long-term memories. After the surgery, HM could remember his childhood. He could remember everything that happened before the operation, but he could not form new memories. Every person he met, he forgot within minutes. Every conversation reset. Every day was the first day for the rest of his life. He lived in a permanent present that never accumulated into a past. What was that like for him? Imagine waking up every morning with no memory of yesterday. Everyone around you is a stranger, even if you met them an hour ago. You cannot learn from experience because experience evaporates the moment it ends. You cannot plan for tomorrow because tomorrow is an abstract concept with no emotional weight. You exist only in the now, and the now is a 3-second window that keeps replacing itself over and over, forever. This is what happens when the brain's timeline-building machinery breaks. You lose yourself, because yourself is not a thing, it is a story, and stories require time. This is why solitary confinement is torture. When you remove external stimulation, when you take away events that can be organized into a timeline, when you trap someone in a monotonous environment where every moment is identical to the last, their sense of time disintegrates. Days blur together. People lose track of how long they have been confined. Some report that time speeds up. Others say it slows to a crawl. The timeline becomes unreliable because there are no markers, no events to hang memories on. The brain needs change to construct time. Without change, time collapses. And this tells you something profound. Time is not passive, it is active. Your brain is constantly working to build it, to maintain it, to keep the story coherent. And when that construction process fails, when the brain cannot build a timeline anymore, you don't just lose time, you lose yourself. You lose the narrative thread that makes you a continuous being rather than a series of disconnected moments. Time is not just how you measure reality, it is how you construct identity. It is the glue that holds the self together across the gap between what was and what will be. Your brain builds time because it has to. Evolution shaped your brain to create a timeline because organisms with a sense of past, present, and future survive better than organisms without one. An animal that can remember where food was yesterday and predict where food will be tomorrow has an advantage over an animal that lives only in the present. Time is a survival tool. It is a way of organizing reality so that you can navigate it, learn from it, and manipulate it. But just because time is useful doesn't mean it is real. A map is useful for finding your way through a city, but the map is not the city. Time is a map. Reality is the territory. And the map, as always, is not the territory. Think about other animals. Dogs don't seem to have the same sense of future planning that humans do. They live much more in the present moment. Their sense of time is probably very different from yours. They remember the past to some degree. They recognize patterns, but they don't seem to worry about retirement or wonder what they will be doing 5 years from now. Their timeline is shorter, more focused on immediate needs and recent experiences. Does this mean time flows differently for a dog than for a human? In a sense, yes. The constructed experience of time is different because the brain doing the constructing is different. Time is not a universal constant. It is a species-specific, brain-specific phenomenon that varies depending on the cognitive architecture experiencing it. So here is the real question, the one that brings everything together. If time is not fundamental, if the flow of time is an illusion created by your brain, if the past and future exist just as much as the present, if now is not special, if entropy is the only thing giving time a direction, if your memory constructs the past, and your imagination constructs the future, and your attention constructs the present, then what are you actually experiencing right now? You might be a conscious point moving across a fixed four-dimensional structure, experiencing different slices of space-time one after another, like frames in a film. The structure is static. You are what is moving, or more accurately, your awareness is moving. The future is already there, waiting for you to experience it. The past is still there, behind you, just as real as the moment you are in now. You are not traveling through time. You are traveling across time, sampling moments that already exist. Or maybe you are not traveling at all. Maybe you are a configuration of matter and energy that is constantly changing, constantly transforming, and the change itself is what you interpret as time. There is no journey, there is no destination, there is just transformation. You are not the same person you were a second ago because every cell in your body has changed. Every neuron has fired in a new pattern. Every atom has shifted position. You are a process, not a thing. And the process is what feels like time. Let me make this more concrete. Look at your hand right now. That hand is not the same hand it was 10 years ago. Every atom has been replaced. The cells have died and been regenerated thousands of times. The proteins, the DNA, the molecular machinery, all of it has been swapped out piece by piece. The hand you are looking at is a completely different physical object than the hand you had as a child, and yet you call it the same hand. You experience it as continuous. Why? Because the pattern persists. The shape remains recognizable. The function continues. The hand is not a thing. It is a process that maintains a stable form while the underlying material constantly changes. You are the same way. You are not a fixed object moving through time. You are a pattern of organization that persists across material change. The atoms that make up your body right now will not be the atoms that make up your body next year, but the pattern will continue. And that pattern, that stable form, is what you call yourself. You are a verb pretending to be a noun. You are a process that has learned to think of itself as a thing. And the sense of continuity you feel, the sense that you are the same person who went to sleep last night, is not based on material identity. It is based on informational continuity. The pattern persists. The memories link. The narrative holds. And that is enough to create the illusion of a stable self moving through time. But what happens when the pattern breaks? What happens when the information gets corrupted? There is a thought experiment called the teletransportation paradox. Imagine a device that scans your body atom by atom, records the complete state of every particle, transmits that information to Mars, and reconstructs you there exactly. Same atoms, same arrangement, same memories, same personality. Are you the person who walks out of the machine on Mars? Or did the original you die when the scanner disintegrated your body on Earth? Most people's intuition splits on this question. Some say it is the same person. The pattern was preserved. The information continued. Therefore, the self persisted. Others say it is a copy, a new person with your memories. The original died. This disagreement reveals something important about how we think about identity and time. If you believe identity is about material continuity, then the copy is not you. If you believe identity is about informational continuity, then the copy is you. And the question of which belief is correct has no answer. Because identity, like time, is a constructed concept. It is a story we tell. And stories can be told different ways. Either way, what you feel, this sensation of moving forward, of time flowing like a river, of moments slipping away into the past, is not what is actually happening. What is actually happening is far stranger. You are either witnessing a static reality that already exists in its entirety, or you are a dynamic system constantly reconstructing itself, interpreting the flux of change as the passage of time. In both cases, the flow is not out there. It is in here. It is in your brain. It is in your consciousness. It is in the way your mind processes information and builds narratives to make sense of a universe that fundamentally does not care about past, present, or future. Time, as you know it, does not exist. What exists is change, entropy, causality, memory, and the incredible ability of your brain to weave all of those things together into a coherent story called time. The story feels real because it is the only story you have ever known, but it is still a story. And like all stories, it is a simplification, a compression, a way of making the incomprehensible feel manageable. The universe is not a timeline. It is a structure. It is a web of relationships, a field of possibilities, a quantum state evolving according to laws that do not require or recognize the passage of time. You are part of that structure. You are a pattern within it. And the fact that you experience yourself as moving through time is one of the most beautiful and tragic illusions consciousness has ever produced. Beautiful because it gives your life meaning, continuity, and narrative. Tragic because it separates you from the deeper reality beneath the illusion, a reality where past and future are just directions in space-time, where now is a perspective, not a fact, where time is emergent, not fundamental. So the next time you check your watch, the next time you feel like time is running out, the next time you worry about the future or regret the past, remember this: you are not running out of time. Time is running out of you. It is dissolving under scrutiny, revealing itself to be nothing more than the way your brain organizes change, and change is the only thing that is real. The ticking of the clock is not time passing. It is just the clock changing state. You are not getting older. You are transforming. The universe is not marching toward the future. It is simply rearranging itself according to the laws of physics, and your consciousness is interpreting that rearrangement as a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. That story is yours. It is personal. It is subjective, and it is absolutely essential for your survival and sanity. But it is not the truth. The truth is colder, stranger, and more alien than anything your brain is designed to comprehend. The truth is that you exist in a timeless structure, experiencing moments that do not flow, building memories that reconstruct a past that is still present, imagining futures that already exist or might never exist, depending on which interpretation of quantum mechanics turns out to be correct. The truth is that time, the thing you trust more than anything, the thing that defines your entire existence, is fake. And what you are actually experiencing is the dance of entropy across a static four-dimensional landscape, filtered through the narrative-building machinery of a biological brain that evolved to survive, not to understand. And maybe that is okay. Maybe the illusion is enough. Maybe the story is worth telling even if it is not true. Because in the end, whether time is real or fake, whether the future exists or is yet to be written, whether you are traveling through space-time or space-time is traveling through you, you still have to live. You still have to make choices, even if those choices were always going to happen. You still have to feel the weight of the present moment, even if that moment is not objectively real. You still have to experience the flow of time, even if the flow is a lie, because the lie is all you have. The lie is what makes you human. And the truth, as beautiful and terrifying as it is, will never feel as real as the illusion. So live in the illusion. Embrace the flow. Let time carry you forward even though it is not moving. Let the present feel special, even though it is not. Let the past fade and the future approach, even though both are equally real and equally unreal. Because this is what you are built for. This is what consciousness does. It takes a timeless universe and turns it into a story. And that story, fake or not, is the only reality you will ever know.